Hey guys! In celebration of our September Mythical Creatures box, we thought it would be a lot of fun to show you some of our favorite books that feature mythical creatures in them. So we're going to talk about 12 different books today, so let's get into it.
So I'm going to start with a fairly obvious pick, and I'm going to go with all of the Percy Jackson books by Riordan. So I'm pretty sure most people know what Percy Jackson is about at this point, but in the story we follow Percy Jackson himself, who finds out that he is actually a young demigod and the son of Poseidon, and then he attends this magical camp for other demigods called Camp Half-Blood. Once at Camp Half-Blood, he gets into all sorts of shenanigans, and he's sent on this epic quest to help the gods of Olympus. Now this series is just so much fun. These characters are so endearing and I love them so much, but there's also a ton of mythological creatures because it is based on mythology. In here we have centaurs and satyrs and minotaurs and cyclops and Pegasus, and there's just so many mythical creatures in here and it's so much fun. If you haven't read this yet, please pick it up. It's just fabulous.
So the first book that I'm going to talk about is a very obvious one, and that is the entire Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. If you don't know what Harry Potter is, I don't really know what to say to you other than go read the book, do yourself a favor. This series just has so many mythical creatures in it that it's kind of hard to just pick one. Like there's dragons, there's phoenix, there's a basilisk, there's pixies, like the list goes on, and they're all pretty amazing, to be honest. So yeah. I think if I absolutely had to choose just one favorite mythical creature from the series, it would definitely be Buckbeak the Hippogriff from number 3, Prisoner of Azkaban. He's just awesome. So yeah, do yourself a favor, pick up the series, and love it.
Next up, I have Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. Peter Pan is one of my all-time favorite children's classics books. I own multiple editions and have read it multiple times. And this book is just so magical feeling. I'm not going to explain the synopsis really because I'm sure you know what Peter Pan is about. But this book, the only mythological creature I feel like is in here other than fairies or mermaids, but this is just so much fun and it's such a classic story, and I think if you haven't read this yet, I definitely recommend picking it up because it's just so whimsical and fabulous.
So next up, I wanted to talk about Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. So this is a really gorgeous story all about a girl who is studying art in Prague, and then one day she discovers a whole other world, and within this world are chimera. I also found this story quite interesting because the chimera are actually at war with angels, which are really unique in their own way. The writing style is absolutely beautiful, so if you haven't read this series yet, I definitely recommend it.
Next, I have The Ice Dragon by George R.R. Martin. Now, this book is actually set in Westeros, so it's part of the Song of Ice and Fire world, but this is a children's story. Now, I don't watch the Game of Thrones TV show, but I hear that The Ice Dragon made an appearance in this season, so I was pretty excited that I had actually read this book and got that reference. So in this book, we follow a 7-year-old girl named Adara, and for her whole life, it has been winter in Westeros. It is quite an atmospheric read, very accessible, so if you are kind of intimidated by Game of Thrones because they're huge, this is a decent place to start, I would say, because it's quite short, and it's just a stunning book full of dragons and wonder and mystery, and Adara is such a charming character, and this book really is just so beautiful. It was just a pleasure to read it.
So next up is Daughter of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller. We included this in our March OwlCrate box, and I absolutely adore this story. It is essentially about a girl named Alosa who is the daughter of a pirate king, and she willingly allows herself to be held captive on an enemy pirate ship in hopes that she can raid their ship in looking for a lost treasure map. So the mythical creature in this story is actually a siren, which they are similar to mermaids, but they're a lot more evil. Their entire goal is to kind of drag sailors down into the depths and drown them. So this is just an awesome adventure story that's filled with so much humor and sass, and it was just a riot to read. I absolutely loved it.
Next, I have Heartstone by Elle, Katherine Wright, and this is actually a Pride and Prejudice retelling, but it's full of dragons. Now this very closely follows the plotline of Pride and Prejudice, but insert all sorts of mythical creatures. So we have dragons, and direwolves, and griffins, and banshees, and all sorts of stuff in here. So you follow that romantic plotline with the classic kind of writing feel, but you get all of the extra bonus goodies as well. Now this is an adult fantasy novel, but it's super accessible and I definitely recommend it.
Alright, so next up is a really fun one. It's My Lady Jane by Cynthia, Brodi, Ashton, and Jodi Meadows, which we included in our June 2016 OwlCrate box. So this is a fantasy novel based on the history of Lady Jane Grey, who was a queen for just a couple days before she was beheaded, and the authors decided to give her a different ending. So in this story, Jane is married to a guy named Gifford who is an Ethian, which basically means he's a shapeshifter. He turns into a horse every day. So My Lady Jane is an awesome mix of historical fiction and fantasy and a lot of humor. So if you're looking for a funny read, I definitely recommend this one.
Next, I have a middle grade series, and that is Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. Now this series was recommended to me so much as I do love middle grade fantasy. This book is actually set in Fablehaven, which is a sanctuary for mythical creatures. In this series, we follow Kendra and her brother Seth, who spend the summer at Fablehaven, which her grandparents are the caretakers of. As you can probably imagine, they get into all sorts of mischief with these mythical creatures, and it's just so much fun, and if you like middle grade, I definitely recommend picking this one up.
So next up is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I'm sure most of you know what this series is about, but essentially the first book is about an assassin named Selena who enters a competition to become the king's champion. So essentially, if she wins this competition, she will be protecting the king and serving alongside him instead of going to a prison. So there's a few different mythical creatures throughout the series. One that I really like are called wyverns, which are kind of these like dragon creatures that some of the characters ride. They're really fierce and awesome. And then obviously the series also touches on the Fae mythology a lot. So if you're looking for a series with a really badass female main character and some fun mythical bits to it as well, I definitely recommend picking up Throne of Glass.
My final book is Eragon by Christopher Paolini. Now Christopher Paolini actually wrote this book when he was just 16 years old. It was published way back in 2002, and he does such a great story for him being so young when he wrote it. I'm really impressed. In this book we follow Eragon himself, who finds a shiny blue stone which turns out to be a dragon egg, and the adventure ensues from there. This is a fabulous story about so many dragons, and if you like to read about dragons, and who doesn't, you have to pick up this book.
And finally is one of my favorite books of all time, The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. So this is a really atmospheric story. It takes place on a small island where the residents have a race in November every year where they essentially race these water horses from the sea. Now these are not your typical nice horses. They are flesh-eating and very dangerous creatures, and a lot of people don't make it out of the race alive. Now I've never read another story with creatures like these, so I found it super interesting. The writing is absolutely beautiful and the characters were just incredible. I can't really describe how much I love this book. I just urge everyone to pick it up.
Alright, so that was just a few of the books that we really enjoy that feature some mythical creatures in them. Let us know some of the books that you like with mythical creatures in them in the comments below. We'd love to read more. As per usual, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Happy reading, and thanks for being awesome. Bye!
Bye!